Hello there, and welcome to What the Tech. I am Rolando, and over here is one of my best friends in the world,
That's
Dave
right.
Kelly.
What's going on, Rolando? Nice to see your face today, my friend.
Likewise, good seeing you. Good seeing you. Happy Tech Tuesday, baby!
That's right. Tech
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yeah, man. And so I am glad to be sitting here talking with you about a topic that is buzzing and heating up all the interwebs. It is a topic dealing with crypto and blockchain and people getting super rich on selling digital art. Are you keeping up with what's going on with that
Man,
thing? Or?
this stuff is absolutely amazing. You know, it's funny. My 15-year-old is schooling me on some of this stuff. I'm really happy that he keeps up on some of these trends. It was Saturday Night Live had a skit about NFTs. It really is. It's everywhere. Now I'm wondering, when can I start getting paid in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin and the rest, man.
Yeah.
I had no idea that people were making buku bucks on digital art and other assets. And I just saw this morning that Michael Eisner, you know who that guy is. He
Yep.
was the former head of the Disney Corporation,
Yep.
and he's now getting Topps, who's the folks that make the collector's cards, right? The baseball cards. If you're old enough, you remember they were wrapped them in bubble gum and all that, or
Yep.
am I confusing
Yep,
that with
that
one of the
stick.
other ones?
No, it was Tops. They had a stick of gum, and it was disgusting. But you'd never throw it away because that was 35 cents that you bought that pack of cards for. So,
Right,
yeah, you
right.
were eating it.
And Michael Eisner was talking about how he's taking them public, and there's a huge interest in digital, and that's going to be a big play for them. And so, and NFTs, and I
Yeah.
can't think of a better match for something on an NFT. I mean, again, we're just learning about NFTs and how they work, but collector's cards, right? If you have, let's
makes
say, a
sense.
one of a kind collector's card that you are the only one in the world in possession of. Imagine how that would, let's say there was only one LeBron James type of card, a rookie card or something like that, right?
Sure. Yep.
How valuable that would be. That's what you could do with NFTs, and we're going to jump into that here on the show. Now, we're waiting for our guest, Adam Mistrelli of IBM, to arrive. I'm not sure. He may have had some delays or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's having internet issues or not. But Adam, if you can still hear us, please check in, and you can jump into the stream as soon as we're able to patch you in. So, what I was going to say was, and I lost my train of thought for a second. Well, so when Adam joins us, we'll patch him into the live stream as well. Dave, you ready to jump into this thing?
Man, I am ready to rock and roll. So, you know, we like starting these things off with a trivia question, and I thought that this was a pretty interesting way for us to go. I really like what you were saying about the Topps baseball cards as it relates to NFTs. Our trivia question, or you want to throw that up there?
Ooh,
All right.
that.
So, how much did this masterpiece by Leonardo da Vinci sell for at auction? 20, 60, 235, or $450 million? You know, it is amazing how much original artwork can sell for, and it's amazing that a copy of original artwork is worth basically what the paper and ink costs to print it out. But our answer later on this trivia question.
Right. Well, it's fascinating what artwork can sell for. I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong profession, Dave.
Are you an artist?
I don't know. I can kind of, but there's stuff that isn't like actual figure. People have abstract art and all the rest. So there's multiple forms of art. So let's keep on trucking here. Well, we'll fill in the part about Adam coming in a little bit. So let's jump into this video. Let's kick it off with that CNBC video, Ori. So let me just set this up on what you're going to see here. You've got a little bit of some sound from an art where we've been talking about the 69 million. I can't even say it. How often do you say 69 million? La 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 la. Let me
That
work
is a
out
big
the cheeks.
number.
It's a big number. So, Ori, when you're ready, go ahead and roll that.
So the Christie's auction for digital artist Beeple whose real name is Mike Winkleman, coming to a close a few moments ago. The final bid, David, $69 million.
Oh my gosh.
As of 6 months ago, Beeple had yet to sell any work, and most of America and the world are still trying to understand how NFTs fit into overall asset valuations. But
Carl, help me. Carl, help me understand.
Help me.
I'm relying on you and Morgan to explain this to me. I can say non-fungible. What is a non-fungible token? But that's about where my understanding ends. Yeah. All right. $69 million. Winkleman. Way to go, Winkleman. Way to make it happen. Beeple.
This is incredible, too. I mean, the NFT situation has just kind of exploded onto the scene, and the numbers behind it. I mean, just to see $69 million. I'll tell you this. It's tied to the Ethereum blockchain, David. And if you take a look at Ether, which is the cryptocurrency tied to that, that's higher again today, too. In fact, we have seen Ether outperforming Bitcoin as of late because there's some supply changes happening to that cryptocurrency. But yeah, it's like you Google NFT right now, and I know they've been covering it pretty intensely on Squawk Alley, Carl. But you Google it right now, and there's all kinds of explainers out there, and it's still, I have to say, a little bit confusing.
And I'm sure it's a lot confusing for still a lot of people, because this is a whole new world that didn't exist, that now is in play, and got a lot of people's attention. There's a lot of folks like I believe is so Mark Cuban, NBA may have some kind of thing. I can't vaguely remember what they're doing around the world of NFTs. It's certainly a game changer for folks that are artists, not just artists, but we'll have a little video here that's going to explain a little bit more. We're going to dive into that. But Dave, $69 million, it could be a fluke. It could not be a fluke. What do you think about that?
When I look at the actual artwork itself, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I'm looking at 1,000 individual pictures, 1,000 individual pieces of art that were all put into that one particular piece.
Now, why didn't you think of that, man? You could have cashed in pretty big.
Yeah, you know, I bet it was a wise investment. We're gonna have to hang out a couple of years, see what it's worth down the road. But I mean, if that's all owned by one person as an original,
and he has royalties, well, then that's the whole thing about, we're going to get into the NFTs. You can set up. So he sold it for $69 million, and if it ends up selling for $100 million or reselling for $200 million, whoever the current owner of that time is, has to pay Winkleman royalties if he set up the contract that way. So he's still going to collect money if it keeps changing hands.
You know, and as it comes with just standard U.S. currency, there's not things like that. It sounds pretty unique. I'm sure that when this Da Vinci art sold, if that resold to someone else, part of that profit didn't go back to the original seller of the
no
piece.
Way. So that's what makes this so unique, is that NFTs, and we're going to jump right into NFTs in a moment. But before we jump into that, I just want to say NFTs are like unique pieces that exist in the digital world, and at least digitized, so that it has a unique token and a hash mark and all this stuff. I don't want to jump ahead of the gun, but essentially it's a unique thing that cannot be replicated. Now, can you take a screenshot of that? Of course you can take a screenshot of that, but that's not the original artwork, and you will never have a claim to that artwork being an original piece, unlike maybe a Da Vinci that could be easily forged. It's in some cases, some people are very good at forging artwork, and if any article you read about some famous masterpieces that are hanging in several galleries and museums that are not original artwork. So it'll help those artists along other things to make sure they're getting paid properly and compensated on royalties and such. All right, Dave. So let's jump into what in the world is an NFT. Our friends at CNBC were a little bit confused about it, so we're going to help them as well as the rest of the audience that's tuning in to watching us today explain. We're going to go one by one, so that after this, you will know a lot about it, at least a lot more, and aware of what an NFT is, what to do with it, and is it right for you. So Ori, let's jump into that first video on what is an NFT.
So I'm going to describe what an NFT is in the most basic terms I can. NFT stands for non-fungible token. Fungible means something is able to be exchanged or substituted and will hold the same value. It's interchangeable, like the dollar, gold, casino chips, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or frequent flyer loyalty points. If I lend you $10 cash and you return to me 2 $5 banknotes, I'm fine with that because even though they are different, they hold the same total value. They're fungible.
All right, that's the first part. Fungible.
Fungible. That's a fun word.
Fungible. So we clear on fungible, Dave. You got that? Fungible. Tell me what fungible means. Like I'm a professor. So tell me, did you understand what fungible means?
I do understand it. So it's a value, and it will be worth that value back to you. You know, I like the way that he explained it. He took a $10 bill, he gave it to his friend. His friend gave him 2 $5 bills. They're not copies of bills. Those are it has a value that is always the same.
Okay.
More or less.
So fungible. And if you're watching us live or on the replay, you can always replay it, right? If you've missed that, that's why we're gonna go step by step on this. Now we're gonna jump into the I wanted to say, yeah, like you said, currencies and gold, those are all fungible. Now we're gonna explain the non-fungible part. Now that so that you can get these two concepts in contrast. Go ahead, Ori, roll that.
So non-fungible obviously means it's an asset that can't be substituted. It has unique attributes that make it different from something else in the same asset class, like a painting, a theatre ticket, a house, a video game skin, a trademark, or a CryptoKitty, which was the first real use case to take off on the Ethereum blockchain in 2017. Some of these assets are physical and tangible, and others are digital and intangible. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens.
Non-fungible tokens. Okay.
So unique and original.
Unique and original. They can't be copied or easily duplicated. And that's what makes those $69 million pieces of art so valuable. They cannot be duplicated. And again, you can take a screenshot of it, but it's not the original. And if you want to know who made, when the original was made, who owns it, the NFT can be traced to who originated with the artwork or the piece or the actual thing that you're selling. And we're going to talk about some other applications for NFTs. The thing that's grabbing the most attention is the artwork piece, but it has other applications in other industries, and we're going to reveal some of that coming up. So Dave, are you with me? Fungible, like gold.
I'm following right behind you. I understand.
Me too, man. This is all new stuff, but I thought it was interesting to dive into because a lot of folks are talking about it, and I wanted to learn more about it as well. And non-fungible, right? Unique things like a skin that's created, or they call it a skin on a game or a virtual world. It could be an art piece. It could be some of those other things that
I like the concert ticket. You know, I bought concert tickets, cost me $100, front row center, and I wouldn't sell it for all the money in the world.
I just heard, speaking of concert tickets, I heard from, I follow a guy named Gary V. Vaynerchuk, I think is his last name, but Gary V explained something that I thought was fascinating, how you can create an NFT, a non-fungible token, for a ticket. And let's say you are Fleetwood Mac, right? You have concerts around the world, but maybe you're going to create a unique experience for specific tours. So now you sell an NFT of a ticket that gets you front row seats, backstage passes for your lifetime for any concert that Fleetwood Mac would have. Now, there would be a lot of people that put big money to have front row seats, backstage pass, and lifetime access to that for any Fleetwood Mac concert, right?
Yeah.
So now you sell that ticket, or let's say Fleetwood Mac sold that ticket. I'm sure it would be worth lots of money, especially to those folks that follow Fleetwood Mac. And so that's just another example of how you could use an NFT in a way that's slightly different than art. It's unique. People can bid on it. And the way you would bid on it, and we're going to talk about this, is that this is now how it's held. How this comes together is the third piece that we're going to show you now. Ori, you ready? Okay.
Token refers to a digital certificate stored on a secure distributed database called a blockchain. So NFTs are digital assets, publicly verifiable intellectual property authenticated on a blockchain. A popular place to currently browse a variety of NFTs is on OpenSea.io. It's an exciting space. I believe the NFT space will continue to grow in the coming years, with some popular use cases being digital art, virtual land, gaming, collectibles, finance, and much more.
There you go. So it is a token that resides and lives on the blockchain, and it's using Ethereum. And Ethereum is kind of like an eBay seller of sorts that sells these goods and assets, and those goods are sold on the blockchain. So imagine, Dave, you have something you sell on eBay. The biggest problem today on the market, on a lot, Amazon, eBay, all these other marketplaces, is that there's counterfeit products.
Right.
There are goods that, and beyond counterfeit, there may be, knockoffs, and a whole host of things, payment issues and fraud that's committed through those marketplaces. Imagine if you could eliminate that.
Yeah, it's like eliminating the middleman of it all and going right to the source.
You're going to the source, and you're getting rid of some of the biggest problems when it comes to selling goods digitally or otherwise. And because it lives on the blockchain, which we'll also explain here in a little bit, it makes it so that it's there's a ledger that it's transparent, it's visible, and people can find what, when, the chain of custody, and all of that stuff. So in addition to the fact that you have goods can be sold, you have contracts that can be sold, you have it touched on financial aspects, and we're going to touch on that in a little bit, as well as the artwork piece, which is grabbing most of the attention.
Right.
So let's go back and let's do a super quick summary. NFTs, fungible. Dave, tell us what a fungible token is.
Fungible as it can be replicated.
Right. Okay. Awesome. And we'll go to non-fungible.
Non-fungible. It's unique.
It's unique. Awesome. And third, the application or where it lives. It's like a token. It's a token, right? That's unique, and it lives on the blockchain. And in the case of a lot of those NFTs, they're using Ethereum, and we're going to explain the difference between Ethereum, something like Ethereum, and Bitcoin. So we're going to jump into that in a little bit. Now, Ori, we've got that video. Yes, we do. We have a video there for the threat. Why is this in some cases such a big deal, especially if we're jumping into a different industry like the financial sector? Like Dave just said, it can represent cutting out the middleman. So now if you are creating a transaction between two parties, and the banks or the insurance companies are really the intermediary between those two parties coming together, and you have a way to ensure that funds are going to get transferred between the two parties, and that the product that's being sold or good being sold is the product it's intended to be, or you put parameters around that contract and you do that from the beginning. In some cases, this could be a really big threat for the financial sectors, different industries in there, and there's a whole host of folks jumping into the crypto side. Ori, can we jump into that video about the threat? So let's talk a little bit about where this is going, and we've got some really smart people that we want to talk about that, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Through why the traditional finance companies or insurance companies are under threat or at risk of disruption by the blockchain or crypto.
The whole intent of blockchains is to cut out the middleman. that if you buy a life insurance policy, there are many steps involved where somebody has to underwrite the policy. You may get a medical exam, all kinds of paperwork and proof of identity and so forth. And everybody collects a fee for performing those services. And the point of crypto is to go immediately from your wish to own the policy to the creation of the policy with minimal outside interference, to let a robot do all of this work.
All right, there we
you
go.
know, it seems like you're able to get more for your dollar. So I bought a life insurance policy for myself recently, and when I was signing over my first premium, there was a piece of paper that came over that said from the insurance agent, he says, I'm getting paid 30% of this premium for the 30 years of the policy. And I said, what's this? He's like, that's my commission. I'm like,
Nice.
well, I'm surprised you're telling me that. And he says, well, by law, we have to tell you that. And I'm like, what? But that's all of my money. Why couldn't I spend 30+% less for my policy? So I could see where insurance agencies could be a little concerned about this.
Well, imagine that if you all of a sudden can find yourself under assault, and this type of transaction, Dave, it really takes the end-to-end experience to the next level, because it takes out those layers that are not there today, especially if you're talking big dollar transactions. Let's say you're an institution and you want to reinsure a building, or you're trying to insure assets, and authenticating who those parties are and if there's money behind it, that you can set all these clauses into the contract that you could do on the Ethereum blockchain. And so we're going to get into Ethereum here in a moment, and Bitcoin, and talk about what makes them so different. But there are a lot of agencies that would be threatened by this, and that would look at this on a poo-poo. And I'm sure that some folks are probably using some type of information warfare, as I would call it, to try to paint crypto in a certain way. But if you look at all the headlines in the last few weeks, you see that Tesla has poured money into it. Other companies have talked about getting into the crypto game, and it's because it's getting some stickiness. Institutions are also pouring money into the game, and so that makes it even more sticky. As if the big players are jumping in, that means that other folks have to jump in as well, because it is a trend that is starting to take momentum.
Yeah.
And so with that, you have folks talking about other things beyond the $60 million painting or digital NFT that's sold. Time will tell if it's a pet rock or not, but I don't think so. That little squirrel that the guy was talking to, our Australian friend was talking about, I guess he said he kicked it off in 2017, and here we are in 2021. To me, it seems like it just arrived, but it hasn't. NFTs haven't just arrived.
I just hope we're not late to the party. And I don't think we are. The Cash App, which is a way to exchange money, like peer-to-peer cash exchanges. Mm-hmm. You can buy and sell Bitcoin right from your Cash App, and I thought that was amazing. And I know people that have taken $1,000 on their Cash App, put it into Bitcoin, and then they kind of pick away from that. So they put $1,000 in, and then they spend money, and then in 2 or 3 weeks they still have $1,000 in there. I mean, it seems a little risky. I don't know if I'd play that kind of game, but it's very mainstream these days.
Well, that's worth pointing out. We're not financial advisors, so we're not giving any financial advice. We're just giving you our opinions and bringing you the opinions of others. And on that last video, we had Professor Scott Galloway of NYU, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, who's also a professor, and David Yermak. Thank you, Ori. David Yermak, who brought you that sound about it being a threat to some of these industries. We have some more sound from that interview that we want you to play, because they really go in and clarify some of this stuff much better than I could say it. Or I don't know, I can't speak for you, Dave, but that definitely they speak to it a lot clearer than I could explain it. So Ori, roll the next piece of that segment.
And routine financial transactions can be automated in a way that makes it both safer and quicker. The easiest example is trading stock. We had that fiasco with the Robinhood GameStop trading halt that occurred a couple of weeks ago. What caused that was the fact that stock trades take 2 days to settle, and they require people to post collateral as guarantees that deals will close, payments will be made, and so forth. But crypto can make those transactions occur instantly. And all the intermediate steps and all the people who are being paid to keep track of things and check on things basically evaporate from the equation. And that's really what the finance industry is vulnerable to. There's a lot of people in finance who just keep track of things.
All right, there you go. So the financial, that whole GameStop, I still trying to wrap my head around that whole thing, but essentially the lack of transparency and the inability to execute on trades is really what it boils down to. There's a lot of other factors that were in the mix, but imagine if you could trade without those limitations today, without having to, the settlement of this and that, or wait and delay. We're in 2021. We're not in the 20th century, 1900s, right, when everything was done on paper. But still, we still have this system that is kind of antiquated for what we need right now in 2021. Isn't that, find that amazing, Dave?
It's amazing how, we put a lot of faith in the dollar when in fact we're just hoping that it's really backed by gold. With stock trading, like he had mentioned, it does take 2 days to settle Bitcoin in a snap. In a snap, or crypto. I should have said probably crypto.
Yeah, and Bitcoin's one of the larger player, but yeah, it's I find that when I saw that piece, I was like, yeah, that makes sense, right? What the tech, Dave?
What the tech? I need somebody to answer that for me.
What the tech? I don't know, but I think that the applications on the financial sector seem very apparent, very clear. If you're a company, I know that I was talking to a friend of the show, Delane Clifford, and she was telling me that out where she's on the West Coast, there are places like kiosks where you can pay with crypto.
That's amazing.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
If you think about it, though, a lot of the things that we're paying for today, products and services, we don't actually touch the money anymore. When was the last time you had a pocket full of cash? You have numbers on an app attached to your bank account, but we don't ever actually touch the money.
That's right. You don't have to. And now this is the next phase of that. You went from checks to wire transfers to digital wallets, and now crypto wallets. I would imagine it's still a wallet of some sort, but it's based on cryptocurrency. So all right, so let's go into the last piece of this interview that we want to draw from there, which brings a little bit more into focus what we're talking about. Go ahead and roll that, Ori.
Going to be a challenge to the banking and payments industry. And I think Ethereum was really built to challenge the insurance industry. And these two are roughly the same size. Banking and insurance are more or less at parity in their role in the world economy. But we hear much more about banking and think much more about banking day to day. But Ethereum is all about risk management and insurance. And it's a much more flexible blockchain. On Bitcoin, you can simply do one thing, which is to send coins. David sends 8 coins to Scott.
Right.
On Ethereum, you can put contingencies. Like David will send 8 Ether to Scott if the temperature is above 100 degrees for 8 days in a row. So that would be a very crude form of crop insurance.
All right, there we go. So Ethereum, where a lot of the NFTs, where the action is happening, that's using Ethereum. And Bitcoin is a little bit different. It's part of the crypto action. But Ethereum is more for those contracts where, like an auction, you set a price, and if the price gets to, they usually call it some kind of reserve or a floor. If it sells for at least 60 million, then you can have the art piece. And so those are some of the other conditions that you can place around those contracts. And the professor was talking about in terms of crops as well. So for the shipping industry, folks that ship in containers, remember just not too long ago, we had a big old ship stuck in the Suez Canal. And if your bananas or your other goods were to fallen into the Suez Canal, some of these contracts kick in if you had them based on something like using Ethereum in a contract and all that are executed based on, I get my goods, it arrives at our location, but they arrive not spoiled or at the bottom of the sea.
I'm on board, man. It sounds safe. It makes me feel good. It's like, here's your money, but if that doesn't arrive to me in the condition or the time as expected, it's already built in that it won't be that much.
Right.
It's some sort of a protection.
Right. And we've done international commerce for almost 20 years, and when you're dealing with different countries, the transactions aren't just like a PayPal. Here's my PayPal account, and just send it to our. And there's banks, and then there's letters of credit, as they're called, and there's stuff that's all in there, and it's really a messy ordeal. So if you've done international commerce and you've heard the term letters of credit, you probably will cry and cringe knowing how that's done. It's not as common as it used to be, but in some places it is. And it makes those transactions just takes longer to execute things, and actually the process of commerce is much more bogged down when you have these bank to bank. This is essentially what it is, a bank to bank type of transaction. So no need with the blockchain, no need with Ethereum that can help create those conditions so that buyer and seller both get what they want. Dave, did I get that, or did I miss anything? You tell me.
You know what? You're the teacher on this one a little bit. I have a lot to learn.
I don't hold the degree like Professor Yarmak or Scott Galloway. Too. I follow Professor Galloway. He's a character, and I say that in the best way. That he's a good character, and he keeps you entertained when you're watching his podcasts or his clips. So let's dive in. If you have no further things that you want to jump on there, Dave, let's jump into crypto. We're talking about Bitcoin. We're talking about Ethereum. They're two different things. They both use the blockchain, but they both use them a little bit differently. So, Ori, let's roll it to the video on the cryptocurrency, that YouTube video.
Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, was born. Bitcoin is digital, meaning there's no physical coin you can touch or hold. But it is different from the digital money you spend shopping online. Bitcoin is what is known as a decentralized digital currency. That means there are no banks, government, or other intermediaries overseeing these transactions.
And that part's the scary part. This is where a lot of people hit the brakes and no banks, no government. And that's true. With Bitcoin, it's completely decentralized. It's one of those things you have to take, I would imagine, the good and the bad, just like cash today. Yeah. There are people counterfeiting it. There are bad guys using it for bad things and laundering it. But people still need cash to do transactions, right? So if you're able to provide a good that will enable businesses and people, and whether they're large or small businesses or institutions, to do business in a much more clean, more efficient way, hey, I'm all for that. I don't see anything wrong with it, but it has the potential, because there's no regulation right now. Governments worldwide are trying to get their arms around this and trying to see, because it's not going away. It's not fading. I mean, it has a value, and it's volatile. It's very volatile, but the value of the Bitcoin keeps going up, and the usage of Bitcoin in particular is getting more widely available. As we talked a little earlier about Tesla being the one that really put a lot of they put a couple $1 billion behind it so that they could have Bitcoin, and other institutions are getting into that. So Bitcoin looks, Dave, like it's here to stay.
Hey, the whole thing with Tesla, they saying, I know that they were investing in it, but are they also saying that they'll sell their products and accept Bitcoin as a currency?
I can't vouch for that. I just happened to hear about the headline that Elon Musk went in on that. I'm sure that maybe Ori can confirm that for us while we're still on air. But the fact that Tesla went and did that, or Elon, he said, let's do it. Whether they're holding it as a value so that their company is diversified and holding those coins for themselves, or going to use it in the process of commerce, I guess that's to be determined. I will tell you. Okay, so my producer just said that Tesla does accept Bitcoin. So in addition to holding it as currency, they are using it to transact business. So there you go.
So Tesla, monster organization. I wonder how Bitcoin is going to affect the small to medium businesses.
It's an interesting question. I believe that all of these tools, there you go. Musk says you can buy Tesla with a Bitcoin. Thanks, Ori. So there you go. He's finding a way, because if you're a seller, think about this for a second, Dave. We sell goods on marketplaces, and we sell, people are paying us to have them ship them some goods. There's fees along the way, just like we're talking about earlier. Your insurance, that's like 30% commission. Every time you sell, every time anybody, if you're buying a good on Amazon, you don't pay the fee, but the merchant is paying that fee. And those fees can range, and those are controlled by different organizations that can go anywhere from as low as 2% all the way up to 20%. And if in the case of insurance, it's 30%. We call that a transaction fee, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're Tesla and you say, wow, what if we don't have to pay that 3%, 5%, 8%, whatever they're being charged to create the transaction and give it to the seller, right? They don't have to give them that. They don't have to give that money to MasterCard, Visa, Amex, or some other marketplace
right.
that's holding that. So as a business, if there is a way for you to get on the blockchain and be able to execute those transactions without those fees or much lower fees, let's say it's half of 1%.
Yeah,
as a business, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and then for the consumer, maybe they can purchase that product at a discount because there are none of those fees in the middle. So it's a win-win.
It is a win-win if the merchant decides to pass on those savings to the consumer. Absolutely. As a business, they could absorb those savings. Tesla may say, yeah, we'll pocket the extra 9 or 8% or whatever happens, whatever fee they are normally paying to create the transaction. Right, as well as if they're I would imagine a lot of these are cars, especially high-end cars. They're financed, right? So there's some finance fees, in leasing the cars and all of that. A lot of that gets eliminated. That messiness of waiting for credit approvals and leasing the vehicle and all that stuff. That's done. You've got the money. Boom, goes right into their account, essentially into their Bitcoin account.
I think it's time to stock up on some Bitcoin over here. One of the interesting things that I find about Bitcoin is just like there's fluctuations with the dollar, there's fluctuations with the value of Bitcoin, but it seems to happen any minute of the day. I could give you $100 of Bitcoin at 8 a.m. and by 5 p.m. you could have $20 in Bitcoin or $200 in Bitcoin.
Well, I know that the value just keeps going up. And it's, again, we're not financial advisors. We're just kind of giving you our opinions. So if you want to get into Bitcoin, make sure you check with your particular financial advisor and make sure that it's right for you.
And if that advisor is getting paid commissions, they may say, no. Nope. Keep it. Nope.
Oh, well, there you have it. So that's what you probably could do. Get some advice from the financial folks that have their finger on the pulse a little bit better. But you're right, Dave. It's a matter of where's it. Somebody used to say, "Where's the hockey puck going?" I think it was not Mario Lemieux. What's the guy from the LA Kings? Gretzky. Thank you. It's where the puck is going. That's how he's so good. He could go to where it was going, and the puck is moving in the direction of this. Now, will crypto eliminate everything? I don't think so. Just like the internet did not eliminate paper. There's still a lot of paper that's printed for a whole lot of stuff, right? I think it's going to be, you're going to have both. I think Gary Vee mentions this very well. Why have either or when you can have and? You can have and. There's going to be some places where you have both. You're going to, in some places you have cash, digital wallets, crypto wallets, and the rest. That's going to be around with us for a while. Just like IP, voice over IP was supposed to eliminate on-premise phone systems. That has not happened. There is still a need for that for some applications. Certain customers, they need to have it for either regulatory reasons or other particular needs that the cloud doesn't make sense. This is, I think, the same thing. This is just going to be a new way that enables transaction, and those customers and businesses that want to leverage it will find the best way to use it within their business, including small business. There will be companies that will then market it to small businesses, and then I think you will see a much greater adoption, because right now it's really with the folks that have a lot of the institutions are pouring the money into Bitcoin more so than anyone else. Now, where did Bitcoin originate? Do we have sound on that, Ori? Okay. All right, and that was going to be an Adam question. It looks like our special guest Adam was having some issues, so he can't join us. So we had some stuff lined up for him, but we could certainly keep talking about Bitcoin and crypto. It was so when let me jump back. So we were talking about Bitcoin, Dave. I'm wondering when the government institutions are going to step in and really step up here and put their arms around this in one way or another, rather to keep the party going or, pour cold water on it. Especially because these big companies are, especially the financials, because Bitcoin decentralizes, and it takes power away from centralized banks, Federal Reserve, and puts the power in the individuals, purses.
It's music to my ears, but I'm sure it's not music to everyone's ears.
Well, not to jump into the politics of it, but I think there's a lot of folks that have a lot to lose if things become decentralized. And will they push back on it? That's what I'm asking is, will there be a pushback on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? I mean, there are ETFs around Bitcoin. There's ways to trade it and use it, and a lot of applications for it, but I don't know. Do you think the governments around the world are going to step in to try to regulate this better?
Absolutely. I mean, they have their hand in everything. Why wouldn't they want their hand in this too? I shouldn't have answered. Now I got the FBI knocking on my door over there.
Well, I think, like with a lot of things, and I could be wrong about this, but when the government sees also a way, either you have some kind of threat, right, that can destabilize the particular government, that'd be one way for them to step in, or they lose some control, some measure of power. But if there's a loss of revenue, and if you think about like the last 2 years since the Wayfair decision in South Dakota, I know it was South or North Dakota, the Wayfair decision, I believe it was South Dakota, where the Supreme Court ruled that sellers that exist outside of South Dakota have to pay sales tax to the municipality there, to the state government. That forever changed the landscape on what governments do to collect money from businesses. And so now you have a situation in the US as well as in the UK and in the EU where this type of they want some money, they find a way that makes sense for them, they're going to tax it. And so now businesses are passing these taxes on to the consumer are subject to these taxes in just about any jurisdiction now that collects sales tax, and the EU is moving in full force in that direction as well. So can crypto be taxed? I'm not an expert to know about how that works, but if there's a way to put some parameters around some taxes, and the governments can find a way to execute on payment of those taxes, I'm sure they'll step in and embrace it even more.
Yeah, it certainly feels like something that will eventually happen, and there's a large group of people that are getting in before the government kind of takes some control of it. So might be a good time to get in while the getting is good, as they say.
So let's the getting is good. So now the getting in, we have some footage on what's driving cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I want to play some of that sound and footage for you, and then we could talk about it on the other side. You've got that, Ori? Okay.
There's two factors here. What we really look at CoinShares is we look at sentiment, and sentiment really drives demand. And as you alluded to, a lot of the interest in Bitcoin is coming from institutions. When we look at trends on the trading side, on the structured product side, where we operate and manage $4 billion in assets for our clients, a lot of the inflows are coming from institutions who are allocating through publicly listed exchange traded products or funds. There is retail participation, but it's nowhere near what we saw in 2017. I think what we are seeing, where we are seeing the retail participation, is in things like Dogecoin and other sort of smaller market cap cryptocurrencies that lend themselves more to memification and, what we call meme coins or meme stocks if you look at GameStop and AMC. But really what's driving Bitcoin, in my view, is a fundamental shift in sentiment. Ray Dalio's talking about it, BlackRock's allocating to it, Guggenheim's allocating,
right.
All of the major allocators are now getting in.
But how long can this last? I mean, how long can this bullish sentiment surrounding cryptocurrencies last when you have the likes of Janet Yellen, who just got confirmed as Treasury Secretary, and one of the first things she said is that there will be more regulation that the cryptocurrency industry should get ready for?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think Janet Yellen's comments were fairly nuanced. There's an alphabet soup of three-letter agencies that already regulate the Bitcoin industry. I think there's sort of this misconception that Bitcoin's unregulated, which is certainly false. We spend a lot of time on compliance in our organization. But look, I think what is happening is in 2020, it was a risk for investors to allocate to Bitcoin. In 2021, it is a risk to not allocate to Bitcoin. And it's not just investors, it's corporations. MicroStrategy is soaring on the back of its allocation to Bitcoin. It has more than doubled its treasury reserves due to its allocation. They just hosted an event with over 1,000 corporate treasurers in attendance. And also, I think we now have nation states starting to seriously look at what role Bitcoin could potentially play in the future of their economies. So it's not just institutions and retail, it's also corporations, it's governments, it's the whole world, and I'm really excited.
Awesome.
Wow.
There you go. You have it explained it even a little bit better than what I could do. So there is some regulation, and from her point of view, because they're involved on it, in it. They feel like there's a lot to do there with regulation. As you could argue the other side, that there is not enough because there's no centralized regulation entity like you have an SEC or Federal Reserve. I think that makes a lot of folks feel uncomfortable. And what was interesting from that was two things. It highlights what we were talking about the large institutions jumping in and pouring money into it, as well as the momentum from 2020 to 2021, where now, at least from her point of view, you'd be crazy not to get into Bitcoin, or at least allocate some of your portfolio into that.
Yeah, it was amazing. She had shown just in I think it was 5 weeks in 2021, it was $3.8 billion were purchased or invested into in just such a short period of time. That's amazing. And you know what? And as we're looking at that graph, I'm trying not to look at my own investments on my phone, because that's just a nice graph. You see where it's going way up. I read something a long time ago. I read something a couple of weeks ago that said back in 2017, if you spent $30 on the Toy Story DVD that was released, or you put that $30 towards Bitcoin, that today you'd be a millionaire. Instead, you have the Toy Story DVD.
Well, you heard about, and we're showing some. It's a graph that Reuters put together on also explaining what blockchain and how this all works, and it's a really it's a very good animation of it as well for folks. And Ori, we probably could throw that link on the chat so that folks could go to it and see it on their own. So yeah, Dave, it's a thing and it's here to stay. It looks that way. It's got a lot of support financially, and from an investment standpoint, at least from what CoinShare is saying, you'd be crazy not to get in. But again, check with your financial advisor, see if it makes sense for you. We're just giving you our opinions and what we're seeing and reporting. So blockchain, we started backwards. Blockchain, it sounds like a musical group, Dave. Like that should be the name of a heavy metal rock group.
As a fan of metal, maybe.
No? Maybe?
Actually, yeah. I guess now that I think about it,
Blockchain.
I guess that would fit in pretty well, pretty good.
Well, blockchain is essentially what this whole thing rests on. The Ethereum, Bitcoin, all of that, and what it is, it's a database that's secure, and that allows all of these transactions to happen, and it's transparent. So it's on a ledger that's transparent. So now things can be authenticated very easily. Things can be quantified very easily. Information is stored and visible to others. So now if you have the transparency you need, you avoid some of the other issues. Now the dark part about this is that there are folks that are also, like what I said, the example about using cash for illegal purposes. There are folks that are going to be able to evade because it's decentralized and things aren't flowing through a centralized banking system. They may be able to evade legal reach of the authorities. I don't have the answer to that. I just know that that's a fact, and at some point, somebody very smart will come up with a better way to avoid some of these things. But that's one of the dark sides of this type of application, where you have security built in, but somebody figures out how to use it for like ransomware and all of that kind of stuff that's been attacking different agencies and companies, where they're using the blockchain to get paid in cryptocurrency.
Ozark is the big Netflix show. I don't know if you're an Ozark fan at all, but they have to do a lot of money laundering. Maybe crypto would help them.
I'm more familiar with Narcos, and that's where I could talk about the guys that are using cash for that type of purpose. More of a Narcos fan. I hear that Bad Bunny's going to be on the next installation of Narcos, and I'm a big Bad Bunny fan, so I can't wait to see what that's like.
Very cool.
Well, let's wrap up. It was unfortunate we couldn't have our special guest Adam Mistrelli. I'm sure we'll find out what went down, man. What the tech? What the tech,
Adam?
We'll have to bring him on at some other time. But let's just say, as we sum up this show, crypto is a very hot area. There's a lot going on. NFTs, Bitcoin, the rest. We hope that this has brought you a little bit of clarity when it comes to NFTs and crypto, blockchain, and how all that works. There's still a lot more to wrestle. A lot more will come on here in the next couple of days and weeks that we're all going to find out. Will crypto keep going? I think the last it was at 58,000 for Bitcoin.
Is that what it was?
I think I saw something this morning that it's around 58,000. So
I'm itching. I do have some in there. Now I'm thinking maybe not a bad idea to get a little bit more.
Right. I'll definitely take a look at it for my portfolio as well. I'll talk to my person on that and see if it makes sense for me. Yeah. I want to maybe put a little toe in there just to be like, okay, I'm not going to throw the whole house in there. We'll just throw a little bit in there. Let's see what happens, and see if we can ride a little bit of that wave.
Sure.
So, let's go to the trivia answer. Right? Is that what we got next? There we go.
All right. So this was the artwork. Leonardo da Vinci painted it. How much did it sell for? Rolando, what do you think?
You know, I would say like 235 million. That seems like more than enough.
Well, let's get the answer.
Oh,
whoa.
450 million. Look at that. So according to where this was a Christie's 2016. Holy smoke, Salvador Dali or Da Vinci's Salvator Mundi. I'm mixing up the other artist. Wow, that's just a lot of money. 450 million, just like that. Boom.
You know, but it makes sense. It makes sense to me because it's touched by Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, and you know, it's hopefully it's the real one, the original one, not the fake one out there. That would suck if you paid 450 million and to find out it's not the real one.
I wonder if it exchanges hands, if that person will accept Bitcoin when they resell that.
Well, there you go. It's a very interesting case study. I'm sure that there'll be a lot more to come around using crypto with these type of artwork. So I can't wait to see how that whole thing unfolds. It's definitely a new. We're in a new era here with digital transactions.
For sure.
I want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, we love bringing you things that are on your mind. Remember to like and subscribe. We also release nuggets that are not on our regular Tuesday podcast. And the way to know that we've released it is to get subscribed and notified. And you'll know that we've come out with some nuggets about certain topics that are not discussed here and other exclusive pieces of content that we let our audience and subscribers in on. So look forward to seeing you. We love your comments. If you have questions about this particular episode, or you want to see something in the next episode or a future topic, let us know. We're here. Our team will field your questions. Send us a comment through one of those platforms that you're watching us on, or directly on our website, and we'd be glad to work with you and help you on your journey finding what you need, whether it's something we provide or otherwise. We'd love to refer you to where other expertise may lie so that you can get what you're looking for. Dave, go ahead.
Try it out. Come check us out.
That's right. Dave, was there anything else that I missed or that you wanted to add?
Listen, this is all new. This is all new to me. Good hanging out with you, Rolando. I learned a lot. Looking forward to learning more. Looking forward to becoming rich together. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Absolutely. And on that note, we will see you. Wait a minute. Do we have some announcements? There we go. I was about to close the curtain on it. We've got a good one here with Eva Reed. She's in the technology space and works within the federal government. She's going to bring us some knowledge on what's going on there. Stay tuned for that next week. And now, Ori, we could tell our lovely audience, we'll see you next time.
Have a great night.
See you.